Well, I said this last night after our game against Charlotte that we're a team that's evolving, and we want to continue to evolve in a direction upward. We know that's not always a straight line with changes in our roster and guys getting healthy and guys becoming available. All those types of things are a part of a season, and we are just trying to get focused on how can we get a little bit better. We've got this week to do that, try to get a little bit more healthy, and then prepare for a very good South Florida team at their place on Saturday. So proud of the guys with their resiliency over the last couple of weeks and just trying to find a way to improve.
All right, guys, questions for Coach? Michael? Sure. All right.
When do you expect Isaiah Barnes and Braden Carrington back?
Both are in different circumstances. I know Isaiah's got a doctor's appointment this week that'll add some clarity. Until we have that, it's hard to really say. We'll get some, just knowing where he's at with some more imaging and so forth. Braden is one of those guys that is so determined. He hates missing games, like all of them do, but we just want to make sure that he's ready to go. I don't want him being at 60% the rest of the year. And so we just want to be steadfast in his recovery process, his rehabilitation process. But he's working hard at it. He lives in the training room, and he's trying to get ready for Saturday. We'll see if that's the case.
I guess through all these things you kind of talked about evolving. I mean, but I guess isn't there a point where you shouldn't be evolving anymore, right? I mean, where you need to eventually be the best version of yourself.
Well, that's what we're working on. What I mean by evolving is when you have personnel changes quite often, that changes things, and it does create new opportunity. But basketball is not a plug-and-play sport. It's not, hey, I've got a wide receiver out and I'm just going with the next one and we're running all the same plays. This is a very up and down personnel driven sport where you change based on your personnel. And so that's what I meant by evolving. We are constantly searching for the best version of us. I feel like we've improved these last couple of weeks, and that's always the goal. We just got to keep, as new guys become available and so forth, that is constantly evolving.
Now that you've had Jared Garcia play one game, I guess just in general, what are the kind of strategic differences that he allows you that you were unable to do previously?
Well, you can just look at these last two games. I mean, we've been starting a four-guard lineup with Braden Carrington as our, I guess you'd say, small ball four-man, but four guards. And so we were doing a lot more switching and some different things there. Now we're looking at different lineups where we're playing basically two front court players, two forwards. It's different in pick and roll coverage, different in who takes the ball out of bounds, different in how you run your press attack, how you do different things. And in Jared's case, he's a guy that can score around the basket. As soon as he got in the game, we tried to get him a shot around the hoop, and he was able to knock it in. And so those are parts of it, and just trying to continue to formulate to get JG more game ready, to get him in better and better shape, to see if he can play more extended minutes, and all the while function at the highest level possible with everybody else.
Vastly different game than
The UTSA game, it seemed like Charlotte was doing a lot to try to mix it up to throw you guys off the entire game. How proud of the resiliency of your team to be able to figure that out over the course of the game?
Charlotte's a really tough cover. It was a low possession game. There was only 60 possessions in the game, but the number of cuts and actions to guard was as many as any game that we've played, from side to side to cuts to the rim to post actions. You just got to constantly be ready. We were really trying to take away their 2-point field goals. They're a team that gets to the free throw line a lot. I thought our guys executed very well. They got a little bit loose from three, but that was one of the things that's not been their strength this season. we needed to address that a little bit as the game went on, but we kept them off the foul line for the most part. And then we were able to make enough plays down the stretch. And early in the season, we weren't doing that. The first four times that it was a 1 or 2 possession game with 4 minutes to go, we lost those games. Now we've been able to win 2 of them in a row. So that's growth from our team. We're evolving there. Learning how to win close games is a big part of this thing.
I think you said in your postgame 25% of their points comes from the free throw line. Charlotte's does, and they're also a team that seems to take up a lot of the shot clock too. That can kind of lull you to sleep and cause some mistakes. I thought your guys looked pretty active. Did you feel that same way, that they were locked in each possession?
Well, that's a great observation, and it's so true that there's a physical and mental stamina required to guard a team like Charlotte. They're hitting you with all these different actions, and some of them are what we call window dressing. It's just they're trying to get you lulled to sleep and move around, and all of a sudden, bang, hit you with something. And sometimes it can happen within the last 8 seconds of the clock, where you're guarding with great effort, great intensity, communication for the first 22 seconds. Well, that needs to remain throughout because they're such a different team that way. But I thought our guys were locked in. I was very pleased with our energy and connection, especially early in the game. We loosened up a little bit, and give Charlotte credit for the way they scored in the last several minutes of the half. And then even in the second half, it just got to a little bit more of a grinder type game. Neither team was turning it over very much. It became a half-court game, and we were able to make just enough plays.
This is a little bit of a bigger picture question, but the NCAA now saying that junior college doesn't count towards going to 4 years. And with all the changes that kind of happened the last few years in college basketball, I'm curious if your recruiting philosophy has changed in what you kind of target as a player, what you are looking to bring here. Even when, now you see with the portal you lose players that may be high in talent. So do you look at someone that you can develop a few years? Do you look at someone that maybe will be solid in this conference but maybe not to the top tier level where they would get cherry-picked by somebody else? And how do you evaluate what you really are now looking at to bring in modern-day basketball?
Well, I don't know if this is a 30-minute show or a full movie or a 10-episode Netflix series where we could go into it all, but our recruiting philosophy has had different variations in every summer that we've been here, to what the situation was when we first arrived. Then we went to younger transfers before the second-time transfer waiver was approved, which happened about 13 months ago. So then that changed our philosophy a little bit more. Every school, every institution is a little bit different on how they handle transfer credit. So that poses just, and again, I look at it just as the rails head in this direction for the type of guys that we need to look for academically. But there is an absolute method of, when you're in recruiting now, of how much production is recruited and then how much potential is recruited. You'd like to have a little bit of both. For example, when we recruited Dwan Odom, we recruited a guy with potential, of course, to improve some, but he has so much production behind him in his unique way. And that was something we were really looking for. Whereas an Ian Schmeichel is a guy with great potential, and he's improving at a drastic rate with the opportunities that he's had. So every year is a little bit different. You always have to recruit to your institution. But we will never, ever recruit a guy that we think that will be not so good that he's not attractive to other people. Like, that doesn't help anybody. We want to recruit really good players, guys that will produce and help us win at a high level here, and then continue to work on creating just everything possible to make this such an attractive place like it is. And so with the junior college rule, right now there's still a lot that goes into that. Jared Garcia, his particular case is really a mirror of Pavia that did the lawsuit from Vanderbilt. You have to be in your last year of eligibility, and then you've spent a year at a non-NCAA institution. So that gives him the next year of eligibility. So right now in its current state, any player that's in a junior college right now, they don't exactly have extra years of eligibility. That could happen. It could happen in an hour. I mean, who knows? I mean, anything can change. And we're just going to continue to adjust and change and use any possible way to benefit us.
Coach, you talk about evolving, and now you're in a good place with a couple of victories in a row, and yet, you're waiting on two guys to get back. And so when Carrington gets back and when Barnes gets back, you have to evolve your coaching a little bit. You're kind of backed into a corner the last month or so with what you could do. Does this give you more flexibility, and now are you evolving as a coaching staff to try to figure out how to bring those guys back in the fold?
Absolutely. Our staff meeting this morning was evaluating our previous game and the things that went well, the things that we need to get better at, talking about how to couple that with what we need to get done and get ready for in South Florida, but also of just a vision of where we might go and how we can utilize our roster in the best way possible. We talked about really trying to have strength in numbers. Is there a way to play with more depth, to have shorter bursts, to have more max effort in those times that guys are out there? All those types of things. But I do know we've got a group that is experiencing some success and building a little bit of confidence with a road win and a home win, and it feels good. I wanted to repeat that. We want to keep finding ways to win conference games and whatever that is required, and we're just going to keep trying to figure it out. But anytime you insert somebody into the lineup, there's change, even if they've played before, like Isaiah Barnes or Braden Carrington. Even though Jared had been practicing these last few weeks, he's been practicing as a scout team member, not as a guy to prepare for games so much. So we're going to keep trying to figure it out, and hopefully we can get some great consistency and stay healthy and just keep getting better and better through the rest of the season.
And when you get those two guys back, does it not become kind of what you envisioned in August? Your team, and when you get them all back in the fold?
Yeah, through the summer. I mean, we had basically everybody. There was a couple guys that were limited. We didn't have JG at that time, but you go in with theory. This is what we think that we can look like. These are the things that we think that we'd be best at doing, and we did some of those things early in the non-conference season, and it didn't work out so well. Just the way that we were playing. We made some changes, and we've just been very inconsistent in those first couple months of the year. But I do think our guys have improved, and we've also found a little bit of rhythm in the things that we've been trying to implement. That can change some now with added personnel and putting different guys together again, but we've got a group that is very, very motivated to keep getting better, and we've got to just continue to try to figure things out, and sometimes that happens in game.
Post-game press conferences and that sort of thing, but what is the Honey Badger mentality?
Well, we were searching. We've been searching, but when on that last road trip, and we didn't play very well in the first game on that road trip, and just talking about when we were playing a small lineup at that time, and we were all together for a while, and I was searching for, okay, what is the baddest, toughest, smaller animal out there? And I'm from the state of Wisconsin, and badger is a state animal, and come across them a couple times in the country life that I grew up in, and those are some tough little things. And honey badger in particular, it was basically the mentality. We showed them video of it. We talked about it, about how three things. One, that they really use the things that they're best at. Their claws. They use. And they're tough. They've got thick skin. We've got to be able to move on through the adversity that we've been experiencing. And three, we just got to use what we have to the best of our ability. That a honey badger doesn't try to fight like a lion. They've got another way of doing it. So it's become a funny battle cry for our guys and what we've talked about, but also a mentality. I feel like this last week we've gotten more 50-50 balls. I feel like we've gotten better rebounding. We just got to continue to compete at a high level.
Florida preview and everything that they've been through. I mean, from tragedy striking to trying to find themselves. What's your initial thoughts on them?
Yeah, I can't even fathom the adversity that they've gone through as an organization, and it's not something that you get through in a day. Mere passing, it's so tragic and so sad, not just for him and his family, but his team and everybody infected by it in the South Florida community or Kennesaw State and all the other places that he's worked. So I've had such respect for him as a coach and a person. So their coaching staff is, keeping the guys together, and that's a challenge. They've had some really good games, too, to say that. It says a lot about their organization, their program. But they've got good inside-out game. They've got an interior guy in Reynolds that can really score it. They've got some experience on the perimeter with some guys that have played at a high level and won the conference championship last year. So we're diving in all the details and putting a game plan together this week. But we know they're good at home, and we've got to be able to really bring it. And this is a great test for us. I told our guys last night, we celebrate this one for 24 hours, but we've got a lot of work to do, and we've got to keep getting better.